lot of questions on the evacuation stuff. One of the things that we have to make sure we do before we do that is to get all of our equipment out of your driveways, out of the streets, off the fire hydrants. We have fire hose spread out for miles out there, so please know we're diligently working in those areas to make sure we get that equipment out of there, so when we do go to repopulate, we don't have traffic jams with our folks and you all as you do start to come back into the neighborhoods. Coming around up through Division 50 through Pollock Pines, this is a troublesome spot. If you look out to the east right now, you'll see a pretty dominant column of smoke standing up out there. This is a big unburned island interior in here, and it's continuing to back down towards Highway 50. We've got several hotshot crews and a bunch of fire engines actively engaged in that right now. And we're hoping by the end of the shift today that we can close the door and this will all be burnt all the way down to the river, and we'll reduce that threat going into tomorrow's operational shift. So a lot of work to be done in here, but if you're seeing a lot of smoke that's close, that's where this is coming from. There was about 1,000 acres that was unburned in here, and that's what's consuming as we speak. Moving up the highway corridor, this is looking real good. However, there's still hot spots spread out throughout the river bottom and Highway 50, where there's a lot of cabins through there. So we have folks spread out all the way through the river bottom and up to the highway, making sure all the spots are taken care of, securing all of the cabins that are in the area, and making sure nothing else catches on fire. The other issue that we have along this whole highway corridor is hazard trees. I just came back just a little while ago, and there was 2 probably 40-inch diameter trees that had fallen across the road, so we have to make sure all those hazards are taken care of before we let everybody back through there as well. So we have heavy equipment and we have falling modules working the highway corridor as we speak, taking care of all those hazard trees. As I move further up into Division India, this fire came back to life and is now pushing back towards Wrights Lake. Currently, we have a bunch of our heavy air tankers, the fixed-wing air tankers, doing retardant up here from the wilderness boundary down to our dozer line down here where it says CMD4. We have a lot of aircraft moving in here. We've got a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of dozers, hand crews, preventing that fire from moving to the west. One of our big fears is there's a potential for an easterly wind moving into this later this weekend. We do not want this fire spread to come back any further this way. So we're actively engaged way up high here into the wilderness, trying to make sure that we do not get any more fire spread to the west. We've got a good plan in place using a series of roads, tying it up into the big granite bluffs up high to prevent that spread. So this is something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. We've got a lot of folks. We got night shift, day shift moving in here, and it's something that we're definitely paying attention to. Moving around out here into Division Juliet, Lower Echo Lake. Lower Echo Lake, we just found out yesterday afternoon that there's a bunch more cabins on the lake. So we put some of our firefighters in boats this morning, sent them across, and they're actively doing structure protection at Lower Echo Lake, trying to protect those structures along Lower Echo Lake. So now that the fire's advanced there, we're finding more values at risk that we weren't aware of earlier, and we're taking care of that stuff. Moving down off of the hill, down Highway 50, down into our Branch 15, into Christmas Valley, South Lake Tahoe. Again, heavy resource commitment. We've got folks from all over the country here pushed into this entire area. Right now, the fire is skirted across the north side of Christmas Valley and is being pushed on the east side of Pioneer Trail. We're actively trying to cut dozer line up to the north towards Highway 207, keeping that fire east of Pioneer Trail behind the homes right there. As of right now, we haven't had any structure damage to any of these homes in there. We're continuing that fire to the east, trying to corral it out here. As I come around, you'll see this road system out here, Highway 207, 206, 88, and all the way back down to Kirkwood. We're going to have a lot of equipment, a lot of people working on this periphery out here. There is a chance that this is going to be our containment feature that we're looking at in the future. However, we're trying to make this footprint as small as possible on the landscape, but there is the potential that we do have to go all the way back out to this larger road system. As you know, if you're from here, this is some steep, rugged, nasty country, and it's just not safe in a lot of it to put our firefighters up there in that stuff. Up there, you probably have knee-high, waist-high grass. There's brush. It's just real volatile fuels. As dry as things are right now, it's super explosive, and fire spread is rapid. So we're really watching that, and we're making sure we don't get any of our folks overcommitted with the amount of fire behavior that we're seeing up here. As I come around down into Kirkwood, where the fire had slopped across Highway 88, we've got some hotshot crews and multiple engines and helicopters working in there right now. Currently, they've got a good plan in place trying to cut this finger off before it comes into the community of Kirkwood itself. Last update I had, they're still getting a few spot fires that are flying out down towards the community there. But we've got, the aircraft is working with our folks. This is real rocky, broken granite fuel type out there. So when a spot fire, when a tree torches, it throws embers out there, and it'll land in a receptive fuel bed, torch out another tree, and loft more spot fires out there. And so that's kind of the game that we're playing in some of this stuff. It's amazing that when you see that, it's like, how does that stuff burn through the rocks? Well, that's what it's doing, is it's one tree torches, throws a bunch of embers, it lands in another receptive fuel bed, torches out another tree, and continues to do that. And that's what we're battling down here as well. Coming down the rest of the Highway 88 corridor, all this is looking real good. We still have one little island down here that has not been burned out. And this is one of those areas where there's just a lot of rock, and there's not a lot of available fuel for it to burn. So if you're familiar with this area of Highway 88, you know exactly why that area doesn't have anything to burn. It's a big rock field out here. And then coming across the bottom half of the fire, all this is in monitor and patrol. We're pulling all of our fire hose, getting all of our equipment out there. Again, if you do see stuff in this area, it's all interior. Like I said before, there's going to be snags that are burning, there's stumps that are burning, but we have gotten, adequate distance away from the fire line itself to reduce that threat from fire coming across the fire line. So with that, I hope everybody has a good day, and I'll be answering some questions as you guys send them in this afternoon. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Incident meteorologist Jim Dudley with your weather update. So finally, some good news on the weather side of things here on this fire. We still, through tonight at 11 o'clock, we still have a red flag warning in effect for the fire area. And that, of course, was put out because we have extremely low relative humidities, dry air across the fire. And we've had some really gusty winds up, especially across the ridges on the top edge of the fire. So for tonight, we are expecting the winds to continue to abate or subside across the fire area. And for tomorrow, the winds are going to be much lighter than they were today, especially up on the ridge lines. Now, this fire, the terrain here, as I've said before, generates its own winds. They're called terrain-driven winds. So for tomorrow, we start out the day, overnight tonight, the winds want to flow down canyon, and we expect across most of the fire to have what we call down canyon, downslope winds. And in the morning, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, things start to heat up on the bottom side of the fire and the ridges, and the winds are going to come back up, southwesterly to the northeast, our up canyon, upslope winds. We'll have our gusty winds, especially along the Highway 50 corridor, because that whole canyon up there just really likes to channel the winds up towards the top. Now, these are winds we've been seeing day after day after day. These happen almost every afternoon in the summertime on this terrain over here. So they're not unusual at all. The good news is we don't have the winds aloft coming in, combining with those to create those rather erratic and strong gusty winds up on the top side of the fire. We're still going to have dry conditions. Humidity is going to be low, but we're not going to have the wind tomorrow. And getting into Friday, the winds get even lighter. Friday is a very, very light wind day across the entire fire. So the issues and conditions that weather was causing, especially for the last couple of days, are going to be mitigated by much lighter winds across the fire. And that's your weather update for this afternoon. You guys have a very good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Vollmer, Fire Behavior Analyst for Incident Management Team 6. So we heard operations talk about all the spot fires and the problems that these winds have caused for the resources that are out there in the field. Those spot fires are going to continue to cause problems for all the resources. Currently, the spotting distance is just under 1 mile. So the activity that's going on up in the Division Ida and Juliet area towards the Desolation Wilderness is going to continue to cause us problems until we get into tomorrow, where we heard the incident meteorologist tell us that the winds are going to slow down. So we're battling what we can battle and waiting for those winds to subside so that we can get in there and actively engage those fires. The spot fires continue to be a problem. They've been a problem since the very first day of this incident, and that's what's causing this fire to grow exponentially. So once we get the wind to slow down, we're going to see those spot fire distances slow down. But we are still going to see that probability of ignition be up above 90%. So any spot fire that does go outside of our control lines is going to create a new fire that we're going to have to take action on. We also heard operations talk about all of the hazard trees out there. The fire has hit these trees for 2 weeks now. They're fire weakened. The root systems are compromised, as well as the soil around those root systems. We've had 3 days worth of strong winds. Those strong winds have blown out branches. They've blown the tops out of the trees, and they've blown large diameter trees over. That's blocking our escape routes, it's blocking our access in and out of the communities, and it's blocking our ability to safely mitigate everything so that we can get the residents back into some of these communities quickly. So we have to go through and mitigate those problems so that when we repopulate the areas, that safety hazard is completely gone for the residents. So over the next couple of days, we're going to see the weather change. We're going to see the fire behavior slacken. We're going to see it diminish to a point where we can actually get in there and do some good work and make things safe for the citizens and the communities that are out there. Have a safe night.
Good evening. I'm Eric Lee. I'm the law enforcement liaison for Team 6. So I'm going to cover evac and repop. So I'm going to step over here to this map that's right behind here. And as I go around, I just want to kind of explain once again mandatory evacuation orders and warnings. There's still some confusion out there regarding what that means. So again, this red area that you see right here is a mandatory evacuation order. That means you should not be in that area. If you are, you should be leaving. You should be out now. So that area should be totally clear of people, so the firefighters can get in there and do the good work that they're trying to do. The yellow area that's indicated on the outside of this is the warning area. That means that if you're in that area, you don't necessarily have to leave, but you should be aware of what's going on. Stay tuned to local television and news. Keep up to date on what's going on with the fire in case that situation changes and we have to change this into an order. But in a warning area, you do not have to leave. Today, we're able to repopulate an area up here, North Camino area. So if you went west of this area right here and north of 50, we were able to make that into a warning. What that means is the residents in here are now able to go back home. So we'd like to have that little bit of good information for us, because it's always good when we're able to get folks back home. Now, being that we were able to do that today, one of the questions that came up that I want to be able to answer is, what are the things we have to accomplish in order to get people back home and into their residences? So some of that is making sure that the critical infrastructure is there. We're making sure that the hoses and different fire equipment is off of the roadway. Any trees that might have been damaged have to be cut down and removed. So there's several steps we have to take. We do have meetings every day to examine that, and we are unified in this measure to make sure that we get you guys back home as quickly as we can, but we want to do it in a safe manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer Lee. Okay, so this time we're going to do questions and answers. It looks like operationally and law enforcement centric today. So we're going to have Operations Section Chief come up and take some questions and answers.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for your questions. Okay, so the first one I got here is, how will resources be positioned? Is there enough resources, or will it be more of a reactive approach to fighting it as spot fires flare up? That's a good question, and so how we prioritize our resources is based on the values at risk, and that's primarily life and property first. Okay, so areas like here on the west end of the fire, when the fire flared up, that was our initial response, is we were trying to protect life and property. Now that's exactly what we're doing on the east end of the fire. We know there's a lot of values at risk out there, and that's how we're positioning our resources. Are we reactive? Absolutely. Anytime we see a flare-up near a subdivision or a community, that's exactly where we try to focus our resources. At the same time, we have to try to catch the fire in a larger picture in the containment status. So that's how we look at coming around in a larger area. We have resources focused in certain areas, real tight, close to residences and where property can be lost, and then trying to figure out where we can catch the fire in a little bit bigger picture. Next question was Christmas Valley. What's the update? What's the status of Christmas Valley? So I'll go back over here to my map. So right now we haven't had any structure loss in Christmas Valley. The fire had spotted. It jumped from up here west of Highway 50 all the way across Highway 89 to the east side of Christmas Valley up here on the mountain. Right now that fire is continuing to move off to the east. So that's the status in Christmas Valley. A lot of structure protection, making sure that all the values at risk are being protected. Hoses being pulled around communities and houses. So that's what's going on in Christmas Valley. Is there a new fire on Sly Park? No, there is not a new fire on Sly Park. If you're looking that direction right now, you may see that firing operation, this burning operation that's going on up here on the south side of Highway 250. What does mopping up mean? I guess probably the easiest way I can explain that is if you've ever been camping and you had to put out your campfire. It's putting water on the hot stuff and getting a shovel and stirring it up to where it will not be hot anymore. So we call that mopping up. That's just some of our slang terminology of making sure that the fire is completely extinguished. The next one is, are you doing structure detection along Highway 50 corridor near Strawberry? Absolutely. Absolutely. The fire came through that area several days ago. We still have numerous resources involved in all the tracks throughout Highway 50 corridor in and around the Strawberry area. Spot fires in Division Delta. Not at this time. Division Delta is all secured on this north end. We are still actively engaged in watching this area down here. But like I mentioned before, there's still fire backing off into the canyon down here, south of the dominant ridge time where we have our control line. So there is heat down there, and that's why we have to keep a heavy presence in that area to make sure that if anything does flare up, that it doesn't spot out across our containment lines. So, thank you.
Thank you. So a couple more questions came in regarding evac and repop. So again, I'm going to step back over to this map right here to clarify a couple things. So first of all, one of them was talking about Sly Park Road near Crystal View Station. So if you look right here where Sly Park Road is, that would be that portion where we were able to reduce into a warning today and get folks back in. Another question that came in had to do with Tahoma area up here and why is it in a mandatory evacuation and in Placer County isn't. So basically this area is like 20 miles away from the fire. So although this is in red and we did a mandatory evacuation in order to clear the basin here, is it appropriate not to have yellow up here? Yes. So if you notice all across the top right here in Placer County, there is no warning. It's far enough away that we don't need to put it in a warning. If the winds happen to change and start going in that way, we will make sure we put it in a warning definitely in enough time for people to be aware of what's going on, but we do not anticipate it doing that, so at this time there is no need to do that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Marcucci, and I'm one of the Unified Incident Commanders representing CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 6, the National Incident Management Organization Team 2, and California Interagency Incident Management Team 4. Now that's a lot of titles there that I just threw out there, but collectively here at the incident, we just call that the team. So what that means is, now that we have 3 teams coming into the incident effective this evening, is that as the fire continues to progress to the east, in support of the firefighters and of the effort to contain that fire, we have gone ahead and established another incident base similar to this one at Heavenly Ski Resort. So with that, the travel times will be reduced, and we're looking to get our firefighters closer to the scene so they're not traveling all the way back to Placerville. So in effect, we've gone ahead, and I want to talk about, we've zoned the fire basically along through Kirkwood here up through what we'd consider the Strawberry Valley, and then up into the Desolation Wilderness. So the east zone of the fire will be run out of the Heavenly base, taking all the suppression efforts for that eastern side, and then the western side of the fire will be run out of here in Placerville. There'll be no difference in the efforts or the containment objectives that you've seen that we've laid out here for a couple of weeks now that we've been talking about it. So we just wanted to touch on that just to let everybody know what we're doing. So as you've also seen tonight and has been pretty well illustrated, we're starting to get some black line in here towards the back end of the fire, towards that west end, and we're slowly repopulating the communities. That's our ultimate goal, is to get everybody back into their homes, and to get everybody basically back into the community and start moving back towards restoration of that. So, and as was mentioned earlier, we're working constantly with the utility companies and government agencies to ensure that when people do return, it's a safe environment for them. So that's our goal. Furthermore, it might have been discussed, and there's a lot of questions online that I was just looking at, that one of our tactics is to run the fire towards the old Tamarack fire, and that is not the case. So we wanted to illustrate that, as you see, the fire is moving towards the Sierra front, and our goal right now is to put in a line around it, first of all, to keep it out of the communities and keep it to the east right now, currently, of South Lake Tahoe, but also to come around that fire to some really I guess I'll say really well put in fuel modifications that have been put in around the Heavenly Ski Resort that were already there before the fire, and we can tie into those to hopefully box this fire in. At no time have we talked about trying to send it down towards the Tamarack. So I hope that answers some of the questions that we're getting online. So at the end of the day, we continue to work around this fire as best that we can. It's a big timber fire, to be honest with you, and it's going to take some time for us to do that. We continue, everybody online, being a participant and being supportive of the incident. The firefighters feel that support, and so we'll continue to do our best, and we'll continue to do these meetings to keep you informed. So with that, thank you for your support.
Buenas noches, soy Ricardo Tlapala, vocero del incidente Caldor, y les quiero presentar la breve informativa de hoy, el 1 de septiembre de este día. Si me siguen al mapa, tuvimos un día bueno. Como nos explicó el meteorólogo, el viento y de la bandera roja que anticipamos no nos trajo el comportamiento de incendio que estábamos esperando. Lo que nos prioridad ahorita es prevenir que el incendio se mueva al norte y regrese hacia Wrights Canyon. Empezamos en la división A, donde todavía tenemos un dedo de fuego activo. Lo tenemos redondado por líneas mecánicas y tenemos a una presencia de bomberos ahí que siguen extinguiendo lo que sobra de ese incendio. Esperamos que en unos 2 días la podemos llamar completamente controlada. Nos movemos acá hacia la división D, donde nuestras líneas de contención se han mantenido, las seguimos fortaleciendo y tenemos patrullas en la área para asegurarse que no pasó que no hay ninguna calentura escondida en el terreno que encontramos ahí. Al corredor de la carretera 50, lo que hemos visto es que los vientos les gusta viajar en esa área por el terreno. Esta área del incendio causa que los vientos sean manejados por el terreno. Y tenemos acá una isla aislada que tiene acceso, que nos presenta retos para poder extinguirlo. Si ven humo, es que está viniendo de esta área. Tenemos a un número de recursos comprometidos ahí para asegurarse que este incendio no se siga moviendo. Tenemos líneas mecánicas y tenemos carrillas de mano que siguen con las esfuerzos de extinguir el incendio. Seguimos acá hacia el norte. Como les conté que el aire nos va a cambiar y ahora lo que queremos prevenir es que crezca hacia el norte y se regrese hacia Wrights Lake. Lo que queremos hacer y lo que hemos implementado es tenemos líneas mecánicas, carrillas de mano y muchos grupos de bomberos con mangueras que están preparando el área y están cortando y removiendo esos combustibles y vegetación crítica para que no se pueda crecer el incendio de esa dirección. Y queremos cortarlo acá donde están todas las piedras y hay menos combustible para que siga quemando el incendio. Y es lo que vemos acá en la comunidad de Strawberry. Queremos prevenir que el incendio se siga moviendo al oeste y entrando en Tahoe. La razón que esta área está bajo una orden de evacuación es para que podamos implementar recursos, trocas de bomberos y para que operen nuestros aerotanques y otros recursos aéreos para asegurarse que tengamos líneas de contención para prevenir que incremente ese fuego. Nos movemos acá hacia la división L, donde se separa la rama. Y lo que hemos visto es que queremos prevenir que el incendio llegue a Kirkwood. Lo que estamos haciendo ahí en esa área es tenemos un número de bomberos y líneas mecánicas, carrillas de mano. Tenemos todos nuestros recursos implementados ahí para prevenir que siga pasando ya de lo que pasó en el 88. Si seguimos acá hacia el sur del incendio, lo que hemos visto es que nuestras líneas mecánicas, tenemos líneas de contención y tenemos un número de recursos ahí también implementados. Tenemos recursos de todos los estados ayudándonos lo posiblemente lo que pueden hacer para prevenir que crezca el incendio. Nos movemos a la división Papa, donde también hemos metido líneas de mecánicas y tenemos buen control. Seguimos ahí con patrullas tácticas que están extinguiendo lo que sobra del incendio. La división sur del incendio acá en la rama 30 todavía mantiene bajo control. Lo que estamos haciendo ahora es tenemos patrullas que están empezando a remover nuestro equipo, todas las mangueras, todas las bombas de agua, todo el material que usamos nosotros para extinguir ahí, vamos a empezar a sacarlo y en estas áreas van a empezar a restablecer la electricidad y la agua y todo lo esencial para que podamos repopular esas áreas en lo que sigue. Hablando de órdenes de evacuación, si me siguen aquí al mapa, como les contamos ayer, esta zona del sur al suroeste del incendio ha sido levantada de una advertencia y esas gentes pueden regresar a sus hogares. Hoy celebramos una victoria que pudimos levantar una área de orden y la hemos hecho una advertencia. Con lo que le estamos advirtiendo es que ustedes estén listos para evacuar si llegue a pasar algo. Todos los que viven en esas áreas amarillas estén preparados. Acuérdense que una advertencia de evacuación significa que estén listos, que tengan todas sus cosas importantes, sus medicamentos, sus materiales y cualquier cosa esencial que necesite para salirse de esa área. Y esos que viven acá en estas órdenes, es tiempo de irnos, es tiempo de evacuar esa área geográfica porque hay una amenaza letal presentada a la comunidad. Hoy, al oeste de Slide Park y al norte del 50, se ha cambiado a una advertencia y esas personas con su identificación pueden regresar a sus hogares. La última, lo que los quiero dejar, la actualización del incendio a edad de fecha ha consumido 204,390 acres. Estamos a 20% de contenimiento y tenemos a 4,224 bomberos comprometidos a la lucha a este incendio. Les quiero dejar con el mensaje de nuestro comandante. Nuestro comandante quiere que se aseguren que nosotros y todas las agencias que estamos trabajando juntos y tenemos juntas todos los días para averiguar lo que necesitamos hacer para que ustedes regresen a sus hogares. Estamos trabajando para ustedes y la fuerza es para usted, la comunidad, para que puedan regresar a su hogar. Muchas gracias, que tengan buenas noches.